how did a guy who disagrees so completely with everything that Donald Trump ran on and won on, how did that guy wind up in a position of power in the White House? Good question, because he's not the only one. Doug Macgregor is a retired U.S. Army colonel, author of the book Margin of Victory, our first choice for foreign policy analysis. We're glad to see you tonight. Colonel Macgregor, what do you make of John Bolton's turn?
Well, first of all, I'm impressed with Washington, D.C. There's no other place on the planet where a man who could not be confirmed for the job as ambassador to the UN suddenly overnight is transformed into the minister of truth and the paragon of virtue that everyone should listen to. So no, this couldn't happen anywhere else but Washington, D.C. The second thing is, what's really disturbing is something that you mentioned earlier. This is someone who probably is the most strident advocate for the use of American military power everywhere that we've ever had in the White House, certainly in the job as National Security Advisor. And this from a man who announced very glibly to the American public and numerous publications that, you know, gosh, I didn't see any point to serving in Vietnam because by the time I might have been over there, gosh, the war was probably over anyway, so I saw no point and found a place in the National Guard. So this is
the irony coming from someone who has espoused keeping troops in places long beyond the possibility of victory.
Absolutely. And clearly he was fired principally, not just for the broader issues of Iran and Venezuela and Syria and so forth, but because specifically he spoke publicly and said that Libya could be a good model for North Korea at a point in time when the President of the United States was building a policy to defuse the conflict, the crisis, the war, end the war on the Korean Peninsula. That's the great tragedy. And finally, President Trump said that's enough.
I wonder, would any sane person say Libya that went from a dictatorship, for sure, to a place of total chaos where there are slave markets in the capital? Would anyone look at Libya today and say, you know, we need more of those?
Well, probably Hillary Clinton, since she was the principal force behind it, but I'm sure that John Bolton would have been much happier with Hillary Clinton, certainly more satisfied with George Bush that he served than with Donald Trump. And here's the final tragedy. Everyone knows everyone knows that Mr. Bolton has strong views. No one questions that. Everyone knows his advocacy for wars in many places. And yet, somehow, magically, he got the job and then managed to keep large numbers of people in the National Security Council staff who were all committed anti-Trumpers and to bring in new anti-Trumpers like Elliott Abrams, Jeffries, and others in support of his policies of confrontation and hostility. He thought he was president, and that's ultimately what did him in.
It seems by his behavior that he was working to undermine the president while he was there. I mean, this doesn't seem a departure from what he's been doing for the last couple of years.
Oh, no, absolutely. And remember, he's very much in line with those 4 stars that brought the president over to the Pentagon, sat him down in the tank and said, we'll straighten him out. We'll explain to him why none of these wars can end, why we have to have troops everywhere. That's John Bolton. This town is full of people like John Bolton. The only difference is that Bolton didn't even bother to disguise it. He walked in, actively subverted, tried to replace Donald Trump's policies with his own. The tragedy is he was there so long and did so much damage.
There are so many people in this city who've made fortunes pushing these wars, and I really hope that we take time on this show to expose them because they deserve to be exposed.
Absolutely.
You've made that point many times. Colonel, thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.